Welcome back to Against the Cage. Scott Fontana here once again with the former UFC interim lightweight champion Justin Gaethje, who could become the two-time interim champ with a win over Paddy Pimblett on January 24th in the UFC 324 main event. Justin, listen, we've got plenty to talk about with your fight, but I do actually want to start by asking you about the co-main event that we lost the other day. Kayla Harrison had to go neck surgery, postponing her huge fight with
Yeah,
Amanda Nunes from this card. I know you and Kayla, you guys have a good rapport. What was your reaction when you heard the news?
yeah. I mean, I was heartbroken for her. Especially I was worried for her, especially seeing that it was, a neck injury. We trained so hard, and we're very lucky when we do get to make it to the fight and don't have anything, serious ailments or injuries. And so to see her go through that was, heartbreaking for me. I know how much she wanted that. We've talked about, performing together many times. And so yeah, I was just really bummed out for her. But I'm glad she got the procedure done, and she's a warrior. She's been doing this just like me her whole life, and it's just part of the game that we play.
Sure, sure. And obviously you have a job to do still. Big opportunity fighting for this interim title here. Undisputed title is the goal, of course, but was there any hesitancy to take this fight for anything less than the belt that Ilia Topuria currently holds?
I mean, no, when it was a when it, when I was informed that it was an interim championship, I mean it technically is the same on paper. You guys, everything about the pay. Again, it's the main event on the first Paramount card. This is a huge fight, and when I said for the belt, I meant huge fights, and this is as big as it comes. So yeah, there was no hesitancy at all, and I'm very excited. I'm very excited for this opportunity. This has been a crazy life. It's gone so fast, and I love being in these positions.
Sure, sure. And I know you've been framing it as kind of, hey, this is, you're getting the same money, right? It is a big opportunity. There's also the possibility that, say you win this interim belt, Ilia Topuria, we don't really know what his situation's going on. Maybe the belt is vacated at some point. Whoever's the interim champ gets elevated to that
Yep.
undisputed status. Is that something that, like, would that be a satisfying enough way for you to get to that point, or does it matter to you?
Uh, I would be happy with that. Yeah, I think so. It's not how I want to do it. I don't prefer that, but I would then be defending the belt, which would be the same as unifying the interim and this championship fight. Yeah, I'm not sure how long he's going to sit out. I want to fight. I've been speaking into existence for many months now. I want to fight in January. I thought it would be against Tapuria, but and then I was going to fight and defend my belt in June against the winner of Holloway and Oliveira. But it's changed up a little bit, but I think I can still hit those goals. So yeah, I'm
Sure.
excited.
Sure, and obviously this, as we know, this is not the first time you have held that interim belt. Everyone's pretty familiar with what happened the first time. You were speaking the other day about this with John Anik. You called it a mistake having dropped the belt to the floor after winning it that first time a bunch of years back. I know you get asked about it a lot, so I have another question. Hopefully, it's a fresh one. Was that moment for you impacted at all by the fact that it was an empty arena during the height of COVID and like you didn't even have the fans there to feel the energy along with that accomplishment?
I'm sure that was definitely something that played into it, but ultimately it was in my mind. It was like I have to fight the number one pound for pound guy in the world, which is Khabib. And my task was, even though I was holding the interim belt, my the goal wasn't reached, and so that was the mindset. I needed to prepare for Khabib and try to beat Khabib, and yeah, even that didn't work. So yeah, it's crazy. It's a crazy game. We are competitors. We want to win. We're very competitive. I am at least, and yeah, I knew that. I knew that it got me the opportunity to fight Khabib, and at the time I didn't really understand that it made me a champion on paper in the UFC's eyes. I just knew that it got me the chance to fight Khabib next, and I was excited about that. About that challenge ahead.
And then this time, of course, it is going to be a stuffed full T-Mobile Arena. You're going to have all those fans there, when that belt comes around your waist this time. I can only help but assume it's going to be a lot more satisfying to be able to have that energy this time, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, fighting in front of fans is a big part of why I do this. It brings a lot more energy to the cage. it brings a lot more adrenaline into my body, and that's my favorite part of this sport. So yeah, now I will be celebrating with them. Again, we're Vegas is my favorite place to fight. I get to represent the United States of America against wherever the fuck this guy's from. But yeah, it's my favorite. One of my favorite things to represent my country, my state, my family, my coaches, my team. It's a big part of what we're doing.
And this guy, of course, being Paddy Pimblett, he has he's the guy standing across from you. You have addressed the fact this week that, or really in general, just the fact that you have earned this title shot. And I know there's kind of this retirement ultimatum, but I do want to ask you, has Paddy Pimblett earned the opportunity the same way you have?
I mean, ultimately, I have to say, I mean, yeah, I mean, we're here. He's done some great things. He's actually, finished. He finished Michael Chandler. I didn't finish Michael Chandler. Um, and they got Oliveira and Holloway fighting for the BMF belt. And ultimately, I mean, Sarukian is definitely probably more, deserving, but the guy up multiple times. And there's just something you cannot do, with he was gonna fight for the belt. He pulled out the night before, because he couldn't make weight, or I don't think that any of us are privy to what actually happened that night. I don't know why he got, why he pulled out of the card or why he didn't fight. And I don't think any of us are 100% sure why that didn't happen, but I know he didn't, it does not make the UFC happy, especially if it's not like if it's a serious injury, then obviously there's nothing they can do about it. But if it's they're propping you up to fight this big fight and then you can't make weight, like that's a huge problem. It's something that you cannot do in this sport at the highest level. They put a lot of money, a lot of time, resources into these fights and promoting these fights, and then if you it up like that, they're going to be pissed off. And then he headbutts Dan Hooker, on the scale. That's also something you cannot do. That he risked also losing another fight the day before the big fight, where they put all this promotion, all these resources into propping up this fight. And so, I mean, with it being the first fight on Paramount, I think why, if you're a huge company, why would you take a chance like that? So I mean, that's ultimately why we're here. If it wasn't Patty and me, it was going to be me and Armin. But time will tell where we're going
You
with
know,
this.
you don't usually tend to enter the fights, as far as I can tell, with a whole lot of animosity to your opponents. Obviously there seemed to have been in that situation we're talking about with Armin and Dan Hooker. He just didn't like Dan Hooker for whatever reason, right? But as far as
I think
you,
he's just so emotional. I mean, I don't think he had anything personal against him. I think, he looked at him in the eyes and he just freaking lost it. He lost his cool. And again, it's the highest level in the world, biggest promotion in the world. And yeah, you cannot do that.
but obviously, you and Patty here, it doesn't seem like there's any animosity between the two of you. I know he has a lot of respect, and honestly, I think he thinks of you as one of his favorite fighters. Would you say, and maybe not that he's your favorite fighter, but would you say there's no animosity between you and Patty as well?
No, I mean, personally, I have nothing against him. Outside the fact that he's, again, same reason why he's pissed off. I mean, he's trying to take everything from me, and we got here by being competitive. So, there's no way I'm going to let, go out there and I don't want to let this kid take everything that I've earned and worked for. I've been here for a long time. I've been working my life. I've committed my whole life to this. And so, yeah, I mean, right now the animosity is, you're not taking what's mine. And that's what I'm going, convince myself every day for the last, 2 months, 9 weeks is 9 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago is when I found out I was fighting him. So I've convinced myself, daily that, he's coming from my head and he's going to hurt me. And so, that's where we're at. I don't want to let him hurt me in front of my family, my friends, and I don't want him to take anything from me. So the animosity is, not personal, but obviously I want to fight this guy. I want to beat him. I love the animosity comes from all the doubters. It's crazy how fickle these fans are and how quick they forget who I am and what I do and how good I am at what I do. But yeah, I want to take him deep. I want to take him into the fourth, fifth round, and I want to beat the shit out of this guy. That is the plan, and I will plan on hurting him, and I will want to hurt him. The closer we get to this fight.
It's interesting you're talking about those later rounds because Patty's keeps talking about I don't think it's going to get past the third round. He's also talking about he wants to stand with you. He's made it pretty clear he hopes to knock you out. He has these visions of knocking you out. And that there is this perception that it's striker you versus him, the grappler. Although he's both of you have shown multiple dimensions to your games here. Do you believe him that he actually is looking to make this kind of a striking war, or
I
or just keep with
honestly,
you?
I don't even listen to that because
Hmm.
we'll see. I'm definitely going to turn him into a wrestler. I promise you that. But we'll see. I mean, he's super dangerous. He absolutely commits 100% of his power into his shots. But yeah, I mean, he does leave himself open, and I have to use my experience and my technical abilities to take advantage of those mistakes. He's gonna make mistakes, and you cannot make mistakes at this level. And I have to take advantage of that, when he gets there.
You talk about the wrestling. I mean, he believes his wrestling chops are going to surprise you. He's been touting his success in that department against Michael Chandler. We did see that to some degree as well, right? Do you
Michael
think
Chandler, Michael Chandler tired, got himself tired trying to take him down, which was absolutely foolish. I think it was two, three times Michael Chandler took him down in the first round. He's lifting him up over his head. Classic Michael Chandler. Classic Michael Chandler. So yeah, I mean, once Chandler's past the first round, especially when he tries to wrestle the whole first round, pretty much anybody that's in shape can take him down. The guy gets really tired. Wrestling is tiring, and he his wrestling is very tiring. He's very explosive guy, and he's constantly lifting people above his head, and yeah, it's a lot of wasted energy. So that was a tough position for himself to put himself in. I won't be doing that. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, he can say whatever he wants. This is 25 minutes in time. We'll see what happens.
now, obviously a fight for you at the White House has been a major priority, right? Is that fair to say?
Of course.
Say you get this interim belt, right? Everything goes your way. It doesn't sound like Ilia Topuria is in a rush to return in time for that event. What do you imagine you'd be looking to do as far as the next fight or
Yeah, I
getting a
mean,
fight
now,
on
now
that
you're talking
card?
about speculating, and it's just something I cannot do at
Hmm.
this point. This, next Saturday is all that matters. If I don't find success there, then none of this matters. So I don't care what happens. I know that I'll have the interim belt, and whatever happens, I'll either be fighting and they'll vacate him, and I'll get to be the champion, or I'll fight him, whenever it comes. I do not think they're gonna be happy or want him to wait until the end of the year, and so. But I control none of that, so I'm gonna be ready. This is the end of my career. It's not the end, but it's not the beginning. It's certainly not the beginning. I've had huge fights. I've been fighting my whole life, and I know that there's nothing but absolutely gigantic fights in my future, and so that's what I'm going to be ready for.
And obviously, you've established yourself. Now, I'm going to end on this one. You've established yourself as such the highlight, right? Just in the highlight, Gaethje.
Yeah,
Everyone knows that you are appointment viewing. You bring the violence. Let's say that there's a UFC Mount Rushmore of violence. Your head is on it. Who are the three heads next to you?
of violence.
Yeah.
Oh man, Rampage Jackson, maybe. I mean, in my book, when I'm looking at I'm always going to go back to when I became a fan of the sport. That was the Jose Aldo, the Rampage Jackson, the Chuck Liddell, Wanderlei Silva. Those guys always brought absolute violence. And if that's what we're talking about, then those are the guys that I would put up there.